Just do not refrigerate. These 10 foods. A veteran doctor explains why. What if the way you're storing your food, something you do every single day, is quietly damaging your health, dulling your meals, and shortening the shelf life of the nutrients your body desperately needs as you age? In this video, we're revealing 10 everyday foods that should never go in your refrigerator because chilling them can destroy their flavor, reduce their nutritional value, and even trigger harmful chemical changes. If you're over 50 and focused on staying healthy, energized, and independent, this may be one of the most important food lessons you'll hear. Welcome to Holistic Health, the channel where we empower you with time-tested wisdom and science-backed insights to help you live longer, feel stronger, and eat smarter, starting right in your own kitchen. Let's dive in. Food number 1, potatoes. Why cold kills. Comfort. Potatoes have long been a symbol of comfort and simplicity in the kitchen. Baked, mashed, roasted, or fried. They're woven into the fabric of meals across generations. But there's a hidden mistake many make without realizing it: storing potatoes in the refrigerator. At first glance, it seems logical. Cold preserves freshness, right? Unfortunately, that logic backfires when it comes to this humble vegetable. When potatoes are stored in cold environments, particularly below 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, a process begins inside them that's invisible but harmful. Their natural starches begin converting into sugars much faster than they normally would. While this might not seem like a big deal at first, it actually alters the flavor and texture in a disappointing way, making your creamy mashed potatoes oddly sweet, or giving roasted wedges an unpleasant grittiness. Worse yet, when those sugar-loaded potatoes are cooked at high temperatures, especially during frying or baking, they can form a compound called acrylamide. And here's where my decades of medical experience raise a red flag. Acrylamide is a chemical that's been studied for its potential link to certain cancers. While one plate of fries isn't going to harm you, repeated exposure over time, particularly in seniors whose detox systems aren't as robust, can pose a silent risk. But health isn't the only issue. The cold, damp environment of a refrigerator also accelerates spoilage in other ways. Potatoes are sensitive to moisture, and the humidity inside the fridge encourages mold, soft spots, and even rot. I've seen many patients throw away entire bags of potatoes that went mushy in the fridge, all while wondering what went wrong. And let's not forget that refrigeration can trigger sprouting, which not only depletes nutrients, but also introduces mild toxins. So, what's the smarter, safer way to store your potatoes? Keep them in a cool, dark, and dry space, like a pantry, cellar, or kitchen cupboard, where temperatures stay stable and airflow is gentle. Avoid plastic bags that trap moisture and opt for breathable materials like mesh sacks, paper bags, or open baskets. And a small but important tip: keep them away from onions. Onions release gases that can cause potatoes to spoil faster, even if everything else seems right. With just a little care and attention, your potatoes can stay firm, flavorful, and ready to nourish you in the way nature intended, without any unwanted surprises. Food number 2, tomatoes. The cold that steals the sun. Tomatoes, with their vibrant color and juicy sweetness, are more than just a kitchen staple. They're a symbol of summer, health, and home-cooked goodness. But if you've been storing your tomatoes in the refrigerator, thinking it's the best way to keep them fresh, you might be unintentionally robbing them of everything that makes them delicious and nutritious. As a veteran doctor, I've counseled countless patients on how small food habits can make a big difference in their health. And this is one of those surprisingly common mistakes that flies under the radar. When tomatoes are exposed to cold temperatures, their natural ripening process is interrupted. This process, which develops their sugars, acids, and complex flavors, is essential to achieving that rich, satisfying taste we all love. In the fridge, however, these reactions are shut down. The result? Tomatoes that turn mealy in texture, flat in taste, and often lifeless on the plate. And it doesn't stop at flavor. Cold storage also affects the nutritional content of tomatoes, particularly their levels of lycopene, an antioxidant that gives tomatoes their red hue and has been shown to support heart health, reduce inflammation, and even lower the risk of certain cancers. As we age and our bodies become more vulnerable to oxidative stress, preserving every ounce of natural nutrition in our food becomes critically important. Refrigerating tomatoes doesn't just strip them of their taste, it quietly robs you of those protective benefits as well. So, what should you do instead? The best way to store tomatoes is at room temperature, away from direct sunlight, ideally on a countertop. Place them stem side down, which helps slow moisture loss and prevents bruising. If the tomatoes are still firm and not fully ripe, give them a few days to soften naturally. They'll reach their peak flavor and nutritional value this way. Only when a tomato is perfectly ripe and you can't use it right away should it go into the fridge, and even then, it's best to bring it back to room temperature before eating to regain some of that original flavor and texture. In short, the fridge is no friend to the tomato. Let it ripen the way nature intended, and you'll be rewarded with a fruit that's bursting with life, not dulled by cold. After all, food should be more than just fuel. It should be a sensory experience that nurtures both body and spirit. Food for 3. Onions. Aroma, texture, and the quiet. War with potatoes. Onions are the quiet champions of the kitchen. Their sharp aroma and deep flavor form the foundation of countless dishes, from comforting soups to sizzling stir-fries. But when it comes to storing them, one small mistake can unravel all their culinary potential. Putting them in the refrigerator. While it might seem like a harmless or even sensible choice, refrigerating onions actually triggers a series of changes that work against their natural qualities. Cold, damp environments cause onions to absorb moisture, leading to soft, slimy textures and accelerated spoilage. Instead of staying crisp and firm, they begin to decay from the inside out, sometimes growing mold or even sprouting prematurely. But the problems don't end with texture. Onions are packed with natural sugars and sulfur compounds, the very elements that give them their bold taste and health-boosting properties. When stored in the fridge, these compounds become unstable. The result? An onion that tastes overly sweet, oddly sour, or just off. And if you've ever opened your fridge and caught a whiff of something pungent that doesn't belong, chances are it's your onions misbehaving. Their potent aroma doesn't just stay confined to them. It seeps into everything around, from your butter to your berries, making your entire fridge smell like last night's dinner. As a doctor who's always emphasized the connection between good food and good health, I can tell you that the small details, like how you store your ingredients, truly matter. Onions, when kept properly, are rich in antioxidants and compounds that support heart health, blood sugar balance, and even immune function. But they need the right conditions to stay at their best. The ideal storage? A cool, dry, and well-ventilated space. Think pantry or a kitchen basket. Avoid plastic bags, which trap humidity. Instead, opt for mesh bags or breathable containers that allow airflow. And here's a golden rule many overlook. Never store onions next to potatoes. While they may seem like natural pantry companions, they actually release gases that cause each other to spoil faster. It's like a silent war happening in your cupboard. Only one can win, and usually both lose. If you've already cut an onion, that's the one time refrigeration is acceptable. Just wrap it tightly in plastic, or store it in an airtight container to trap the smell and preserve freshness. Treat your onions right, and they'll return the favor by elevating every dish, every time. Food number 4, garlic, a clove of caution. Garlic is more than just a flavor booster. It's a medicinal powerhouse, a culinary essential, and a cherished part of traditional cooking in cultures around the world. Whether you're sautéing it for pasta, blending it into a sauce, or roasting it until golden and sweet, garlic brings depth, warmth, and healing to every dish. But storing garlic in the refrigerator is a mistake that silently strips it of its best qualities. You might think cold storage will make it last longer, but in reality, the fridge does more harm than good. When garlic is exposed to cold and moisture, it starts to sprout. You'll see green shoots emerging from the cloves. Those shoots are bitter and change the flavor profile significantly, often making it sharp and unpleasant. More importantly, sprouting indicates that the garlic is breaking down and losing its health-promoting compounds, such as allicin, the very substance responsible for its antimicrobial and immune-boosting powers. The fridge also encourages moisture buildup, which garlic hates. This can lead to mold, softness, or even bacterial growth. As someone who has spent years studying the healing effects of food, I can tell you this: garlic must remain dry and properly ventilated to preserve its therapeutic potential. The cold not only diminishes its flavor, but also turns what was once a potent natural remedy into something much less effective, even harmful if spoilage sets in. The proper way to store garlic is surprisingly simple. Keep whole bulbs in a mesh bag, open basket, or a well-ventilated ceramic container. Room temperature, away from direct sunlight and humidity, is ideal. Garlic thrives in the same conditions that our ancestors used, on a shelf, in a pantry, where it can breathe. Once you've broken the bulb and are using individual cloves, try to use them within a few days. If you need to store chopped or minced garlic, you can refrigerate it, but only in a tightly sealed container and for a short time. And if you ever preserve garlic in oil, be extremely cautious. Without refrigeration and proper handling, it can lead to botulism, a rare but dangerous illness. Stored the right way, garlic remains bold, fresh, and full of vitality, and just as it should be. It's one of those humble ingredients that, when respected, rewards you not just with flavor, but with protection, nourishment, and connection to timeless culinary wisdom. Food number 5, avocados. Patience rewards. The palate avocados, once considered exotic, have now become a beloved staple in kitchens across the world. Their creamy texture and rich, nutty flavor make them a versatile ingredient, whether spread on toast, tossed into salads, or blended into smoothies. But despite their growing popularity, many people still struggle with storing them correctly. One of the most common mistakes: putting avocados in the refrigerator too soon. As a doctor who's studied nutrition and aging for decades, I can tell you that timing and temperature are critical when it comes to this unique fruit. Avocados ripen through the release of a natural plant hormone called ethylene, which works best at room temperature. When you place an unripe avocado in the fridge, the cold environment disrupts that ripening process. What you end up with is a fruit that feels like a rock, refuses to soften properly, and lacks the smooth texture and full flavor it's known for. Sometimes, these prematurely chilled avocados turn black inside or develop rubbery, unappetizing flesh. This not only ruins your meal but also wastes what could have been a highly nutritious addition to your diet. And that nutrition is important. Avocados are rich in heart, healthy monounsaturated fats, fiber, potassium, and even antioxidants like lutein, which supports eye health. These nutrients play a vital role, especially for older adults, in maintaining cardiovascular function, reducing inflammation, and supporting brain health. But once these healthy fats begin to oxidize, which can happen when avocados are stored improperly, they start to lose their protective value, the flavor deteriorates, and the benefits diminish. So, what's the right approach? If your avocado is still firm and green, keep it at room temperature on the counter. You can even place it in a paper bag with an apple or banana to speed up the ripening process, as those fruits emit ethylene gas that accelerates softening. Once the avocado yields gently to pressure and is darkened slightly in color, it's ripe and ready to eat. If you're not planning to use it right away, that's when refrigeration becomes appropriate, but only then. Place the ripe avocado in the fridge for up to 2 to 3 days to pause the ripening without compromising its texture and flavor. Now, if you've already cut the avocado and want to store the leftovers, you'll need to take a few extra steps. Avocado flesh oxidizes quickly once exposed to air, turning brown and mushy. To slow this process, brush a little lemon or lime juice on the exposed surface and store it in an airtight container. The acid helps preserve the color, and the tight seal keeps air out. You can also try storing the avocado half with the pit still in. It helps reduce browning slightly, although it's not a complete solution. For longer-term storage, freezing is an option. Mash the avocado with a touch of lemon juice and store it in freezer-safe containers. While the texture changes upon thawing, the flavor and nutrition remain largely intact, making it perfect for smoothies or spreads. In short, respect the ripening rhythm of the avocado. Cold can be a friend, but only when invited at the right time. Jumping the gun by refrigerating too early doesn't just ruin your guacamole, it wastes a powerful source of nourishment. As we grow older, food isn't just about satisfaction, it's about survival, energy, and quality of life. Making small changes in how we store something as simple as an avocado can add up to better meals, better health, and fewer frustrating kitchen experiences. Let your avocados ripen with care, and they'll reward you with creamy richness and healing fats that your body will thank you for. Food number 6. Bananas. Bananas are one of the most universally loved fruits. Simple, naturally sweet, and rich in potassium, they have been a trusted snack for children, athletes, and seniors alike. They require no peeling tools, no washing, and are perfectly portioned by nature. But despite their convenience, bananas are surprisingly delicate when it comes to temperature, and storing them in the refrigerator is one of the most common mistakes people make. At first, it may seem like a reasonable choice. Cold storage preserves so many other fruits, so why not bananas? Unfortunately, bananas are tropical fruits and are simply not built to withstand cold environments. When exposed to low temperatures, their ripening process is disrupted. Bananas rely on the natural emission of ethylene gas to ripen gradually at room temperature. When you refrigerate them before they're ripe, you halt that process prematurely. And what you're left with is a banana that looks ripe on the outside, sometimes even black or deeply browned, but remains firm, starchy, and underdeveloped on the inside. It's what scientists refer to as chilling injury, a reaction that causes the banana's cells to break down internally. Once that damage is done, no amount of time on the counter will reverse it. Worse yet, the texture becomes rubbery, the taste turns bland, and the whole fruit feels like a disappointment. As someone who has worked extensively with older adults and nutrition management, I can tell you that banana texture matters. Seniors often experience changes in chewing ability, dental health, or digestion. A banana that is hard, underripe, or unpleasant to chew is far less likely to be eaten, which means missed opportunities for a potassium-rich snack that supports heart health, muscle function, and electrolyte balance. Now, what about ripe bananas? Can they be refrigerated then? Yes, but timing is everything. Once your bananas have fully ripened, meaning they've developed a few brown spots and feel soft to the touch, they can be placed in the fridge for a short period, ideally just a couple of days. The peel may darken further, but the fruit inside will remain sweet and soft, preserving its eating quality. This is helpful if you're trying to stretch their shelf life just a little longer. But here's my favorite tip, especially for households that find themselves with too many overripe bananas. Freeze them. That's right, freezing is actually a far better preservation method than refrigerating. First, peel them. You can either freeze them whole, sliced, or even mashed. Store them in airtight containers or freezer bags. They're excellent for smoothies, banana bread, pancakes, or even as a frozen treat, blended into a creamy ice cream-like dessert. If you've got ripe bananas that are just a bit too soft to enjoy fresh, don't throw them away. Freeze them and transform them into something delightful later on. There's even an old trick I learned from my grandmother. Wrap the stem of the banana bunch in plastic wrap or foil. This helps slow the release of ethylene gas and can keep the bananas fresher for longer. Want to slow down ripening? Keep them away from other fruits that produce ethylene gas, like apples or avocados. Want to speed it up? Store them in a paper bag with one of those fruits and nature will do the rest. In summary, bananas thrive when left out at room temperature, allowed to ripen naturally, and enjoyed at their peak. Refrigeration disrupts this natural rhythm and turns a golden fruit into a nutritional and sensory letdown. Understanding this simple truth can mean fewer wasted bananas, more enjoyable snacks, and better nutrient retention, especially important for older adults who rely on bananas as a gentle, reliable source of energy and minerals. Let nature do its work, and your bananas will reward you every time with their naturally perfect taste and texture. Food number 7. Melons. Whether it's watermelon, cantaloupe, or honeydew, are often the highlight of a summer day, refreshing and juicy with every bite. They're the kind of fruit that brings families together at barbecues, brightens up a breakfast table, and adds a sense of cool comfort to hot afternoons. But one of the most overlooked truths about melons is that whole, uncut melons should never be stored in the refrigerator. It's a habit many people fall into without question. You bring home a beautiful, ripe melon and immediately place it in the fridge, assuming it will help preserve freshness. Unfortunately, this well-intentioned move may be silently robbing the melon of both flavor and nutrition. Whole melons continue to ripen even after being harvested. This post-harvest ripening process is essential for the fruit to develop its natural sweetness and full nutritional potential. When you put a whole melon in the refrigerator, you abruptly stop this process. The cold temperature suppresses the natural enzymatic activity that brings out its sugars, aromas, and antioxidants. As a result, you're left with a melon that looks ripe on the outside but tastes dull, watery, and less satisfying than it should. In my years as a physician focusing on healthy aging, I often emphasize the importance of nutrient-dense foods. Melons, especially cantaloupe and watermelon, are rich in vitamin C, beta-carotene, and powerful antioxidants that help reduce inflammation and support immune function. Two things that become increasingly important as we age. But studies have shown that storing melons at room temperature, rather than in the fridge, results in higher concentrations of these health-supporting compounds. That means keeping them on the counter doesn't just improve taste, it actually enhances their nutritional value. Watermelon in particular suffers from cold storage. Its crisp, juicy flesh is made up mostly of water, and when subjected to low temperatures, the cell structure begins to break down. That's why refrigerated watermelon often turns grainy or mushy instead of staying firm and refreshing. And with honeydew and cantaloupe, the situation is similar. Cold air dulls the flavor and degrades the soft texture into something rubbery. So, what's the solution? Keep your whole melons at room temperature on the kitchen counter or in a fruit basket away from direct sunlight. Let them ripen fully and naturally. You'll notice a difference not just in sweetness, but in the scent. They'll give off a subtle, fragrant aroma when they're ready to eat. Only once you've sliced into the melon should you store it in the refrigerator. Cut melon is a different story entirely. It's perishable and should be wrapped tightly, or stored in an airtight container and consumed within 3 to 4 days for optimal taste and safety. If you want to keep it even longer, freezing melon chunks is an option, though the texture will change. They're great for smoothies and frozen desserts. Here's another tip. Before cutting any melon, be sure to wash the outer rind thoroughly. You might not think about it, but bacteria from the skin can transfer to the flesh when sliced. A quick rinse and scrub can go a long way toward keeping your food safe. In the end, the message is simple. Melons need time, air, and warmth to reach their full potential. The refrigerator might be right for many fruits, but when it comes to whole melons, it only stands in the way of flavor, texture, and the valuable nutrients our bodies crave. As we grow older and become more conscious of how every bite can either help or harm us, storing our food properly becomes a quiet act of self-care. Let your melons ripen fully in their natural state, and they'll offer back not just hydration and sweetness, but a kind of joyful nourishment that only fresh sun-ripened fruit can provide. Food number 8. Bread is one of the oldest and most comforting foods known to humanity. From the simple warmth of a buttered slice in the morning to the satisfying bite of a hearty sandwich, bread has been a daily staple for generations. It's not just food, it's tradition, connection, and in many cultures, a symbol of life itself. Yet, in an effort to preserve it, many people make a simple but costly mistake, storing their bread in the refrigerator. At first glance, this seems logical. After all, the fridge helps keep other foods fresh, so shouldn't it work for bread too? Unfortunately, the answer is no. In fact, refrigerating bread actually causes it to go stale faster, not slower. As someone who's studied the science of food and the needs of the aging body for decades, I can explain why. Bread is made primarily of starch, and when it's exposed to cold temperatures, a process known as retrogradation occurs. This causes the starch molecules to crystallize, which forces water out of the bread and leads to a dry, crumbly texture. Instead of maintaining its softness, refrigerated bread becomes tough and unpleasant, even if it's still within its expiration date. And if your bread isn't sealed tightly, the refrigerator's humid environment can also make the crust soggy while the inside dries out. It's a texture disaster, and a flavor one too. I've seen many of my older patients become discouraged from eating wholesome, fiber-rich bread simply because the loaf stored in the fridge no longer tasted good. This is especially unfortunate because good bread, particularly whole grain varieties, offers important nutrients, fiber for digestion, B vitamins for energy, and complex carbohydrates for steady blood sugar. For seniors struggling with appetite or trying to avoid overly processed foods, bread can be a reliable, comforting source of nutrition, if stored properly. So, what should you do instead? If you plan to eat your bread within a few days, the best place to store it is in a cool, dry spot like a bread box, pantry, or kitchen cupboard. Keep it in its original packaging or transfer it to a paper bag that allows it to breathe slightly, preventing mold without drying it out. Now, if you've bought more bread than you can eat in a short time, here's a better solution than the fridge. Freeze it. Freezing preserves bread far more effectively. Slice it first, if it isn't already, so you can take out only what you need. Wrap it tightly in plastic wrap or store it in a freezer bag to protect against freezer burn. When you're ready to enjoy it, you can toast it straight from the freezer or let it thaw at room temperature. The result is bread that tastes fresh and retains its texture. Another helpful tip: if you're baking your own bread, consider smaller loaves. That way, you're more likely to finish them before they start to go stale or moldy, and there's less need to worry about storage at all. Bread, like many of the simple pleasures in life, rewards care and attention. As we get older and our meals become more intentional, how we store the staples in our kitchen can make a real difference, not just in taste, but in health and satisfaction. So, resist the urge to refrigerate your bread. Let it stay where it belongs, in a dry, comfortable corner of your kitchen. When stored wisely, it will remain soft, nourishing, and ready to bring warmth to every meal, just as it always has. Food number 9, honey. Honey is one of nature's most remarkable gifts, thick, golden, and sweet. It has been treasured for thousands of years, not only as a natural sweetener, but also as a healing remedy. Ancient civilizations revered honey for its antibacterial properties, its ability to preserve food, and its near-eternal shelf life. Even today, archaeologists have found pots of honey in Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly edible. And yet, despite its resilience, many people unknowingly compromise honey's purity and flavor by storing it in the refrigerator. It might seem harmless, even logical, to keep it cool, especially if you live in a warm climate or want to prevent spoilage. But here's the truth: honey does not need to be refrigerated, and in fact, doing so can diminish its natural properties. When honey is placed in the fridge, the cool temperature causes it to crystallize more rapidly. You've probably seen this happen. What was once smooth and pourable becomes grainy, cloudy, and sometimes rock hard. While crystallized honey is still safe to eat, it's much harder to use. It doesn't spread well, dissolves slowly in tea, and loses some of the sensual enjoyment that makes honey so special in the first place. More importantly, refrigeration can subtly change honey's flavor profile. Over time, the natural enzymes and aromatic compounds that give honey its unique taste begin to degrade. As a physician who encourages natural remedies and whole food approaches to wellness, I often recommend honey for soothing sore throats, easing coughs, and even supporting gut health due to its prebiotic properties. But all of these benefits are best preserved when honey is kept at room temperature in a tightly sealed container, away from light and heat. Moisture is another enemy of honey, and refrigeration can sometimes encourage condensation inside the jar if it's not tightly sealed. This added moisture opens the door to fermentation, a process that not only alters taste but can also introduce unwanted bacteria. While this is rare, especially in commercially processed honey, it's still a risk not worth taking when there's a better alternative. So, where should you store your honey? The best place is a cool, dark pantry or kitchen cupboard. Keep it in its original glass or plastic container with the lid tightly closed. If your honey does crystallize, don't worry. It can easily be restored to its original liquid form by gently placing the jar in a bowl of warm water and stirring until it smooths out. Avoid microwaving it, especially if the container isn't microwave safe, and never use boiling water, as excessive heat can destroy the delicate enzymes and antioxidants that give honey its healing power. For those who use raw or locally sourced honey, which is often richer in nutrients than mass-produced brands, proper storage is even more critical. Raw honey contains pollen, enzymes, and trace vitamins that can support immune health and reduce allergy symptoms when consumed regularly. But these benefits can be lost if the honey is mistreated or exposed to fluctuating temperatures. In my practice, I've often encouraged patients to swap refined sugar for honey in moderation. It's a far more natural alternative, and its slow absorption rate can be gentler on blood sugar levels, something especially important for older adults managing diabetes or insulin sensitivity. In conclusion, honey is a rare food that needs very little help to remain safe, delicious, and health-promoting. Refrigeration is not only unnecessary, but actually counterproductive. Let honey sit proudly in your pantry, untouched by the chill of the fridge, and it will serve you faithfully for years. It's not just a sweetener, it's a symbol of nourishment, tradition, and the quiet wisdom of nature. Treat it with care, and it will give back far more than just flavor. It will bring warmth, healing, and sweetness to your life in every golden spoonful. Food number 10, olive oil. Olive oil is more than just a cooking ingredient. It's a tradition, a medicine, and a treasure passed down through generations, especially in cultures that value food not just for sustenance, but for healing and connection. In Mediterranean regions, olive oil has long been known as liquid gold, praised for its rich flavor, smooth texture, and remarkable health benefits. It's the oil we drizzle over fresh vegetables, blend into dressings, or use as a dip for warm, crusty bread. But despite its revered status, many people unknowingly compromise its quality by storing it in the refrigerator. The intention might be good. After all, the fridge preserves so many other foods. But in the case of olive oil, refrigeration does more harm than good. When olive oil is exposed to cold temperatures, it begins to solidify. You may notice it turning cloudy, thick, or even forming waxy white clumps that look like the oil has spoiled. In reality, the oil hasn't gone bad, but its texture and usability are affected. Once returned to room temperature, the oil may regain its fluid form, but repeated cycles of chilling and warming can subtly alter its flavor, degrade its aroma, and accelerate oxidation. As a veteran doctor who encourages the use of healthy fats for cardiovascular and brain health, I've often advised patients to incorporate extra virgin olive oil into their diets. It's rich in monounsaturated fats, antioxidants like polyphenols, and anti-inflammatory compounds that support heart function, improve cholesterol levels, and reduce the risk of chronic diseases. However, all of these benefits depend on the integrity of the oil, and how you store it plays a big role in preserving that integrity. Another issue with refrigeration is condensation. If moisture forms inside the bottle due to fluctuating temperatures, it can introduce water into the oil. While a small amount might seem harmless, water and oil don't mix well. That bit of moisture can foster bacterial growth or lead to premature spoilage, especially if the oil is not used quickly. And while the fridge does protect against heat, it doesn't safeguard the oil from light and air, two of its biggest enemies. Repeated exposure to light can degrade the oil's antioxidants, while air slowly turns it rancid through oxidation. That's why storing olive oil properly is more than a matter of convenience. It's about preserving its medicinal value. The best place to store olive oil is in a cool, dark cupboard, away from heat sources like stoves or ovens. Choose bottles that are dark-colored glass or stainless steel to protect the oil from light. Always close the lid tightly after each use to minimize exposure to air. Never leave the bottle open on the countertop or near a sunny window. For those who buy olive oil in bulk, it's better to transfer a smaller amount into a working bottle and keep the rest sealed tightly until needed. That way, the main supply is protected from repeated exposure. If you're unsure whether your olive oil is still good, smell it. Fresh olive oil has a grassy, fruity, slightly peppery scent. If it smells musty, stale, or like crayons, it's likely rancid and should be discarded. As we age and become more conscious of the foods we use to fuel our bodies, understanding how to store nutrient-rich items like olive oil becomes essential. It's not just about extending shelf life, it's about honoring the wisdom of real food. Olive oil isn't meant to be hidden away in a cold corner of your fridge. It deserves a place of pride in your kitchen, protected and respected, so it can continue to nourish your heart, brain, and body with every spoonful. When treated with care, olive oil remains not just a culinary ingredient, but a healing companion, rich in heritage, loaded with benefits, and always ready to bring life and flavor to your table. As we've seen today, something as simple as how we store our food can make a profound difference, not just in taste, but in nutrition, health, and even long-term well-being. From creamy avocados to golden honey and liquid gold olive oil, each item carries not just flavor, but generations of wisdom and care. When we treat our ingredients with the respect they deserve, they reward us with nourishment that fuels not just the body, but also the soul. Especially as we grow older, these small daily choices, like keeping potatoes out of the fridge or letting tomatoes ripen on the counter, can support better digestion, stronger immunity, and a deeper connection to the food we eat. If this video helped you learn something new or inspired you to take better care of what's in your kitchen, make sure to hit the like button. It truly supports our mission. And don't forget to subscribe to Holistic Health for more expert-backed tips, timeless wisdom, and practical ways to live a longer, healthier, and more vibrant life. Your journey toward better health starts with knowledge, and we're honored to walk that path with you. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourself and your kitchen. It's where real wellness begins.